Today, we're looking at two pennies you might easily overlook, but these aren't just any old coins rattling in a change jar. These are specific U.S. 1-cent coins from 1961 and 1962, and if you're an experienced collector or someone who's been holding on to old coins, you'll want to pay close attention. These coins, under the right conditions, can command impressive prices at auction, not because of their age alone, but because of rare varieties, minting errors, and the fascinating stories they carry. Let's begin with the 1961 U.S. penny, a coin many people have held in their hands, but few have taken the time to examine closely. On the surface, it's just another Lincoln cent made of copper and weighing 3.11 grams, featuring the familiar portrait of President Lincoln on the obverse. But the true story of the 1961 penny is layered, stretching back to a time when the U.S. Mint was pushing out billions of coins, yet some rare anomalies slipped through the cracks. The 1961 penny was struck during a period of high demand for small change in the U.S., and most of these coins came out of the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Philadelphia's coins have no mint mark, while Denver's carry the D mark. By sheer mintage numbers, these coins aren't scarce. Over 750 million were made in Philadelphia and more than 1.7 billion in Denver. But what separates the valuable ones from the ordinary pocket change are the errors and the pristine, untouched conditions that only a tiny fraction survived in. One of the most sought-after varieties from 1961 is the double die obverse. This error happens when the coins die. The engraved stamp used to press the image into the blank has a misaligned or doubled impression. As a result, details like the date, the letters Liberty, or In God We Trust appear doubled under magnification. Collectors hunt these coins relentlessly because they're a striking example of minting mistakes that escape quality control, and they carry a mystique. Only a small number are known to exist, and new examples still surface occasionally. Now let's talk value. A regular circulated 1961 penny, even in decent shape, won't fetch more than face value or a few cents at best, largely because copper prices set a natural cap. But if you have a 1961 double die in uncirculated condition, especially graded MS-65 or higher, you're looking at hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Auction records show examples selling for over $3,000 when the doubling is bold and the coin surfaces are clean and sharply struck. Even lesser condition specimens can bring in several $100s if the doubling is prominent. And here's an interesting twist. Another prized error is the 1961 D-repunched mint mark, often called RPM. Back in the day, mint marks were hand-punched onto dies, and sometimes the mint worker didn't get it right on the first try. You can spot an RPM by looking closely at the D under magnification. It might show an extra curve or shadow from where it was punched twice. These RPM varieties vary in value depending on how dramatic the doubling is, but they can still command prices well above common coins. Beyond errors, condition plays a critical role. Collectors know that a coin's grade, a measure of its wear, luster, and strike, can swing its value dramatically. A 1961 penny pulled straight from a bankroll, untouched and gleaming, could be worth $10 to $30 in MS-63, MS-65 grades, even without errors. But once you cross into the elite grades like MS-67 red, where the coin retains its original reddish copper color without toning or blemishes, you're entering four-figure territory. Only a few dozen or fewer of these ultra-high-grade coins are known, making them hotly contested among registry collectors who compete to build the best sets. One of the most captivating stories tied to the 1961 penny isn't about a single coin, but about how many errors and high-grade examples stayed hidden for decades. In the 1960s, few people thought to set aside rolls of pennies, but some sharp-eyed collectors and dealers did just that. They stashed away original mint rolls, hoping they'd become valuable over time. Today, when those rolls get cracked open, you can find fresh, gleaming coins that have been untouched for over 60 years, potentially revealing double dies or RPMs that no one knew existed. What's fascinating is that despite the billions minted, the market only rewards the top-tier survivors. If you're sorting through a pile of 1961 pennies, you'll quickly realize most are worn, darkened, and worth only a fraction of a dollar. But finding a mint state example, especially one with a rare error, is like striking copper gold. So, whether you're a seasoned collector who's already got a few of these tucked away, or someone who just remembered a box of old coins in the attic, the 1961 penny is a perfect reminder that even the most ordinary-looking coin can carry hidden value, if you know what to look for. Now, as we turn to the next coin, the 1962 US penny, we'll see that the story doesn't end here. In fact, the following year produced its own fascinating set of varieties, errors, and market surprises that continue to captivate collectors and investors alike. Let's dive into what makes the 1962 penny a star in its own right. The 1962 US penny might seem like just the younger sibling of 1961 cent, but don't be fooled, this coin has carved out its own reputation among collectors. While the design remains the same, with Lincoln's portrait on the front and the wheat reverse still holding its place since the memorial reverse wouldn't appear until 1959, the 1962 penny stands out because of subtle minting quirks, high-end collector demand, and a few notorious errors that have earned it a premium status in today's market. Let's start with the basics. The 1962 Lincoln cent was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with the Philly coins again carrying no mint mark and the Denver coins showing the small d. The total mintage is massive, over 600 million for Philadelphia and an astonishing 1.7 billion plus from Denver. That sheer volume alone tells you these coins were not rare when they left the mint. But over the years, what's become clear is that only a tiny slice of those billions hold meaningful value today. Among the most sought-after 1962 penny varieties is the double die obverse, similar to what we saw in 1961. This error comes from a die that impressed the design twice at slightly offset angles, creating doubled features, most often seen on the date, lettering, or Lincoln's eye and ear details. Finding one of these double die coins in circulated condition might still fetch a premium. But it's the uncirculated, bright red examples that send collectors into a frenzy. High-grade double die specimens can sell for several $1,000s, depending on the sharpness of the doubling and the coin's overall condition. Another key error variety for the 1962 D penny is, once again, the repunched mint mark. Just like the previous year, mint marks were hand-applied and mistakes happened. Some 1962 D pennies show clear evidence of a second or even third punch, often visible under magnification as an extra serif, shadow, or curve beneath the D. Depending on how dramatic the RPM is and the grade of the coin, values can swing from a modest premium of $10 to $50 for minor examples up to several $100s for the scarcer, high-demand varieties. But perhaps the most eye-popping auction results come from the pristine, ultra-high-grade pieces, the so-called red cents graded MS66, MS67, or even MS68. The grading world splits Lincoln cents into three broad color designations: red original bright copper color, red-brown, partial original color with some toning, and brown completely toned or darkened. For the 1962 penny, only the red examples in top mint state grades break into 4 or even 5-figure auction territory. One MS67 red 1962 penny, for instance, sold for over $4,000 at auction, not because of an error but purely because of its immaculate surfaces and eye-popping luster, the kind of quality that registry collectors obsess over to complete the highest-ranked sets. Beyond the market value, the 1962 penny carries some fascinating stories tied to hoards and discoveries. Back in the early 1960s, as America's economy was booming and coin collecting was hitting a surge of popularity, many people, both dealers and average citizens, put away rolls and even bags of freshly minted pennies. Some did it as a hedge against rising copper prices, others simply as a speculative bet on future rarity. Decades later, when those hoards were opened, they became treasure troves for collectors hunting for top-grade survivors and rare varieties. Interestingly, despite the large mintage, truly pristine rolls are now scarce because many were handled poorly, exposed to moisture, or simply spent over the years. One quirky fact that often surprises newer collectors is that the 1962 penny marks one of the last full years before the major design shift in Lincoln cents. While the reverse had already switched from the wheat ears to the Lincoln Memorial in 1959, by the early 1960s, the Mint was also dealing with increasing pressure on copper supplies, rising production costs, and looming changes that would eventually lead to the switch to copper-plated zinc in the 1980s. So, in a way, the 1962 copper Lincoln cent represents the tail end of an era when U.S. pennies were still made from 95% copper, a detail that gives it added historical resonance for metal content purists. Condition again makes all the difference. A circulated 1962 penny, even with a minor error, probably won't make you rich. Typically, you're looking at maybe a few cents to a couple of dollars, depending on the demand for the variety. But if you have a crisp, uncirculated coin with original luster, especially one certified by a major grading service, the market value jumps sharply. Mint State 65 red examples routinely sell for $20 to $50, but MS66 and above can quickly climb to several hundred or even thousands, especially if they're among the finest known. What's really captivating is how much passion the 1962 penny inspires among specialists. There are entire communities and online forums where collectors swap photos of tiny die markers, compare RPM varieties, and debate subtle strike differences between Philadelphia and Denver issues. For many, it's not just about the money. It's the thrill of the hunt, the satisfaction of uncovering a rare variety hidden in plain sight, and the joy of owning a perfect piece of minting history. And let's not overlook the role of auction houses and major sales in setting the market tone. In recent years, top-tier 1962 pennies have appeared in headline auctions, grabbing attention alongside far older or flashier coins. While they may not have the century-spanning history of, say, a 1793 chain cent, these early 60s Lincolns are cementing their place in the high-end, modern coin market, thanks largely to their rarity in pristine condition and the persistent enthusiasm of advanced collectors. Taken together, the 1961 and 1962 Lincoln cents remind us that true value in the coin world often comes not from sheer age or mintage numbers, but from condition, rarity, and the stories each piece carries. They challenge collectors to look closer, learn the subtle differences, and appreciate the art and precision behind even the most familiar coins. So, whether you're combing through old rolls, attending auctions, or just admiring the finest pieces in your collection, these two pennies prove that sometimes the smallest coins can deliver the biggest rewards.